Shadows in the Dust Bowl, the early lives of Bonnie and Clyde. The dirt roads of Texas whispered their names, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, children of the Dust Bowl, shaped by poverty and hardship. Bonnie, small but fierce, dreamed of a life beyond her bleak surroundings. Clyde, charismatic and volatile, simmered with resentment against a world that had dealt him a bad hand. Bonnie, a bright student with a passion for poetry, married young. Her dreams of love soon turned to dust. Clyde, already on a collision course with the law, found solace in petty theft and increasingly brazen acts of defiance. Their paths, seemingly disparate, were destined to converge. Fate, it seemed, had a plan for these two lost souls. Little did they know their names would soon be forever intertwined in a whirlwind of crime and violence. A match ignited, the birth of a deadly duo, 1930, Texas. The air thick with dust and despair. It was in this crucible that Bonnie and Clyde's paths first crossed. A chance meeting, some say. Others whisper of a shared desperation, a recognition in each other's eyes. Clyde, freshly released from prison, carried himself with a dangerous charm. Bonnie, trapped in a loveless marriage, saw in him a way out, a chance for excitement. Their connection was instant, electric. A shared cigarette, a stolen glance. The spark ignited. Their first crime together, a small-town store robbery, was almost clumsy. But they were hooked. The thrill of rebellion, the taste of freedom was addictive. The die was cast. Bonnie and Clyde were now a team, bound by their love and their shared hunger for something more. Rampage across America, a reign of terror. The early 1930s were a time of great turmoil and uncertainty in America. The Great Depression had left many desperate, and out of this desperation emerged some of the most notorious criminals in American history. The Barrow Gang, as they came to be known, cut a bloody swathe across America's heartland. Led by the infamous duo, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, they became the stuff of legends and nightmares. From Texas to Oklahoma, Missouri to New Mexico, their names became synonymous with fear. They were constantly on the move, evading law enforcement and leaving a trail of chaos in their wake. Small-town banks, roadside gas stations, mom-and-pop stores, no establishment was safe. Their targets were often chosen for their vulnerability, striking fear into the hearts of small-town America. They were ruthless, firing off rounds with reckless abandon. Their shootouts with the police were legendary, often resulting in casualties on both sides. Their crimes, once petty, escalated in brutality. What began as simple robberies quickly turned into violent confrontations, with the Barrow Gang showing no mercy. Hostages taken, lawmen gunned down. The Barrow Gang's reign of terror knew no bounds, and their willingness to take lives made them even more dangerous. The body count rose with each passing heist. Each new crime added to their infamy, and the public followed their exploits with a mix of horror and fascination. Bonnie, once a dreamer, now posed for photographs, a cigarette dangling from her lips, a gun in her hand. America was captivated. Her transformation from a small-town girl to a notorious outlaw was the stuff of legend. Here were Bonnie and Clyde, two kids from nowhere, holding the nation hostage with their brazen disregard for the law. Their love story, intertwined with their criminal exploits, only added to their mystique. They were modern-day outlaws, romanticized by some, vilified by most. Their daring escapades and the media's portrayal turned them into folk heroes for a segment of the population. But one thing was certain, they were a force to be reckoned with. Their legacy, a mix of crime, love, and rebellion, continues to fascinate and horrify to this day. The Barrow Gang, partners in life and crime. The Barrow Gang wasn't just Bonnie and Clyde. It was a revolving door of desperate souls, drawn to the allure of easy money and reckless abandon. Among them were Clyde's brother Buck and his wife Blanche. Their loyalty, however, was as fleeting as their luck. Betrayal and bloodshed became grim constants. Buck, critically wounded in a shootout, would later die in custody. Blanche, captured and imprisoned, would carry the scars of her time with the gang for the rest of her life. Despite the constant threat of capture, Bonnie and Clyde found moments of tenderness amidst the chaos. They were lovers, partners, bound by a love story forged in blood and gasoline. Their bond, however twisted, was undeniable. They lived for each other and they would die together. The law closes in, the noose begins to tighten. As Bonnie and Clyde's notoriety grew, so did the pressure on law enforcement. The public was both fascinated and horrified by their exploits, and the media coverage only fueled the frenzy. Headlines screamed of their latest heists and daring escapes, making them infamous across the nation. Frank Hamer, a legendary Texas Ranger with a reputation for bringing down outlaws, was called in. Known for his sharp instincts and unyielding determination, Hamer was the perfect man for the job. Hamer, a man of few words and steely resolve, saw through the romanticism surrounding the Barrow Gang. He understood the true danger they posed to society. He knew them for what they were, cold-blooded killers. The romanticized image of Bonnie and Clyde as modern-day Robin Hoods was a far cry from the brutal reality. Hamer assembled a posse of seasoned lawmen, determined to end the duo's reign of terror. Each member of the posse was handpicked for their skills and experience in dealing with dangerous criminals. They studied the gang's movements, their patterns, their weaknesses. Every detail was scrutinized, every lead followed, as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The chase was on, a deadly game of cat and mouse across the vast expanse of America. From dusty back roads to bustling cities, the pursuit was relentless. Bonnie and Clyde, always one step ahead, seemed invincible. But Hamer was relentless. He knew that their luck would eventually run out. He knew it was only a matter of time. The walls were closing in, and the Barrow Gang's days were numbered. The noose was tightening, and the Barrow Gang's luck was about to run out. The end was near, and justice was on the horizon. Ambush at Black Lake, their last stand. May 23, 1934. A rural road near Black Lake, Louisiana. The air was thick with humidity and the buzzing of cicadas. Bonnie and Clyde, weary from weeks on the run, drove their stolen Ford Vi-8 into a trap. Hamer and his posse lay in wait, concealed in the dense undergrowth. They had received a tip, a betrayal from someone within the gang's inner circle. As the Ford approached, the deafening roar of gunfire erupted, shattering the stillness of the Louisiana morning. Over 130 rounds were fired in a matter of seconds. Bonnie and Clyde, caught completely off guard, never stood a chance. Their bodies, riddled with bullets, slumped over in the front seat. The reign of terror was over. Legacy of violence. The enduring fascination. The bullet-riddled Ford, a macabre monument to their crimes, became a media sensation. This car, riddled with bullets, symbolized the violent end of their spree and became an object of morbid curiosity. People flocked to see it, eager to catch a glimpse of the infamous duo's final moments. Photos of Bonnie and Clyde's lifeless bodies sprawled across the front seat shocked the nation. These images, splashed across newspapers, brought the brutal reality of their lives and deaths into stark relief. The public, captivated by their exploits, was forced to confront the brutal reality of their crimes. The romanticized image of the outlaw lovers was shattered by the stark evidence of their violent end. The myth of Bonnie and Clyde, however, proved difficult to extinguish. Despite the gruesome photos and the undeniable evidence of their crimes, the legend persisted. Their story, fueled by sensationalized newspaper accounts and romanticized portrayals, took on a life of its own. Newspapers and magazines continued to publish stories that painted them as tragic heroes, rebels against a harsh world. They were cast as tragic figures, victims of circumstance, their love story set against the backdrop of the Great Depression. This narrative resonated with a public struggling through hard times, offering a form of escapism. But the truth was far more complex. Behind the romanticized facade was a trail of violence and suffering. Their crimes left a trail of shattered lives and immeasurable grief. Families were torn apart, and communities were left to pick up the pieces. The families of the lawmen they killed, who were left to mourn their loved ones, faced a lifetime of sorrow. The innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire, their lives were irrevocably changed by the violence that Bonnie and Clyde brought into their communities. Their stories deserve to be remembered, their pain acknowledged. The true legacy of Bonnie and Clyde is not one of romance and rebellion, but of the real human cost of their actions. Beyond the myths, the human cost of their crimes. It's easy to get caught up in the Bonnie and Clyde narrative, to see them as folk heroes, symbols of rebellion against an unjust system. But we must remember the victims, the store clerks, the gas station attendants, the families torn apart by their senseless violence. Their story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that glamorizing criminality comes at a cost. The Bonnie and Clyde myth, for all its allure, obscures the human toll of their actions. We must resist the urge to romanticize their violence and instead focus on the very real consequences of their choices. Remember the victims. Honor their memory by rejecting the romanticized narrative and acknowledging the brutality that defined Bonnie and Clyde's short, violent lives. Bonnie and Clyde in popular culture, a romanticized reality. The legend of Bonnie and Clyde has proven irresistible to Hollywood. From Arthur Penn's 1967 classic Bonnie and Clyde to countless other films, television shows, and songs, their story continues to captivate audiences. These portrayals, often emphasizing the romance and rebellion, perpetuate the myth while glossing over the brutality. While it's important to examine the social and economic factors that contributed to their rise, we must do so without condoning their actions. As we consume these stories, let's remember to separate fact from fiction. Let's celebrate the artistry while acknowledging the responsibility that comes with depicting real-life events. The legacy of Bonnie and Clyde is a complicated one, a blend of fact, fiction, and the enduring power of myth. Let's not let the legend overshadow the truth.